Did you know that occasionally this little Grit Jones Funko Pop figurine that was custom made and sent to us by a viewer will come to life and talk in videos? It's true, and if you're wondering what on earth I'm talking about, you should go over to StephenPlays and check out the video that's being posted today for Sunday. You'll understand. Hello everyone and welcome to Saturday. That little figurine is not actually what I'm going to be talking about today though. I instead want to talk about something that is very near and dear to my heart, and that is design. Design is very near and dear to my heart, and in particular, thumbnail design is important. It's very important. And sometimes, by sometimes I mean often, I don't always go for the things that you should do on YouTube. I don't always go for the flashy, grab your attention stuff. I'm more focused on, well, good design. I want to talk a little bit about that today, but this camera is not the best way to do that. We should jump into the computer. Alright, so what I want to go over in this video is basically our new thumbnails. These are the new thumbnails. Sorry to scare you with this guy. You've probably seen them if you've been watching StephenPlays recently. They look very different from some of the old stuff. This is the single-player variant and the co-op variant with Mao. We also have versions for verse 20, and as of today, Saturday, we just posted this. This is the first Stephen and Friends video to utilize the new look as well. And this is really what spurred me to make this video and to finally talk about this, because we've been working on this new layout for a long time, and I thought it'd be a really cool look into the channel history too, because we can go back and check out some of the old thumbnails. So I'm going to take just a minute or two and look at some of the old designs and then talk about how we got to this design. So let's go back, like way back. How far back can we go? Well, we've got a lot of options here. Let's do Assassin's Creed 2. So Assassin's Creed 2 is one of the older layouts that we had. There are layouts older than this, and the layouts that are older than this, well, you're going to get a chance to see kind of them return when we get up a little bit further, but this is the way it used to be. This isn't the earliest one, but this is one of the earliest ones. We would put the game logo up in the corner, and the numbers were down here, and you can actually see the numbers are the same font as the logo itself, the StephenPlays and StephenVlog logo. It's the same font. And this was the layout. Now, eventually, this moved to this. And this was the bar. And when I made it for The Sims 3. And it worked really well. And I liked the way it looked. And it looks pretty good. But the problem is, when I made this, I made it specifically for The Sims logo, which is vertical. The Sims has a vertical logo. And it works here. It doesn't work for basically every other game logo on the planet, because then it's time to do a new game. And you're like, oh, it doesn't fit very good. And I added the StephenPlays text, which probably didn't help, but also I needed something to fill the space because it was just so empty. And I don't like the way this looks. And I know you're always going to hate your old stuff, but like this looks really bad. Then we did, Donkey Kong Country Returns, and I have Mal's names in here, but again, this doesn't work, and it's because this space is vertical. And if you may or may not know this, that this looks awfully close to the thumbnails that Chugga Conroy uses, and that's because I designed Chugga Conroy's thumbnails, and they are basically this. This is an old thing that I used to use, and I ended up giving them to him basically because for what he's doing, it fits, because he has a logo that continually gets rethemed for the game he's playing, which Mal and I also made, and it works here because it's a square and it fills the space really well. So it worked a lot better for him than for us. That being said, we still continued to use it. This is actually indicative of the old one, but for Far Cry, again, this looks ridiculous. This is crazy, but we kept using it. For the puzzle, for Metal Slug with Josh's name. And it's not that this looks like the worst thing in the world, but I don't like it now. Now, for Smash Versus, we did things a little differently because we got, some different design elements coming in. Like for Mario Kart Online, we did some different stuff. But, for the DLC, this looks crazy. It looks absolutely absurd. So we continued to use that. Things start to get bigger and fill up the space more because I really just secretly hate the negative space. For the Smash Brothers series, it's basically the same thing. We just moved it to the middle, but this still is a little more visually interesting, at the very least. And then we do something truly interesting. You know, I showed you the Assassin's Creed 2 one early on. Before that, we had a look that looked really similar to this. Some of the earliest Let's Plays on StephenPlays have this layout, and history repeats itself because now we come back to this. I think the main difference is that before the background was black and now it's green, but otherwise it's the same. So, you know, there's still a few series that are lingering that have the old design, but, you know, for the DLC of this one, we came to this. And then we get rid of the banner, so it's just the text floating. So it's just the text floating up here. And then something happened. We did Pikmin. And Pikmin was one that has a very good visual identity, and I really like it. Even though we've abandoned this banner now, it actually is really nice because it's one of the only series we've done where we kept a bunch of visual elements the same. So the only thing that actually changes in the thumbnails is a creature or a little image over here. The grass and everything stays the same, so you can very quickly identify that it is Pikmin and it is our series. And I like that. It's one of the only times we've ever done that, and I've always really enjoyed the look of these. But the banner is old. So we kept doing that. To the Moon, Bird Story, don't worry about that, that's really old. Bioshock, which was interesting because there's actually this image is the image for every single thumbnail. It's just hard to get thumbnails for first-person shooter stuff. Tulip, Extra Life is a little different, but you can also tell that it's based on that banner. You know, if you could just imagine that the black rectangle is here, it's basically the same thing. Miniature Golf, we're still up on this top banner thing, and I've put some grass behind it. I hate the way that looks, but too bad. We stay on this banner thing for a while, and then eventually we get to Assassin's Creed Revelations, where I say, you know what, getting rid of the banner, and now we do this this little, whatever you call it, rounded rectangle, and this is much more reminiscent of what you guys knew up until just a few months ago, and we did that. We keep that for a while. Uncharted 4, I believe, is the first instance of putting the end on the thumbnail. I just thought it'd be nice to have a little visual indicator of that. Stephen and Friends starts adopting the new look. So we have the rounded rectangle up here too. And then for the first time, Mao is introduced, and we are using some of her branding. And it's really nice. It's really nice because now she is Mao Makes, and this is, you know, her logo and her branding, so we start to incorporate that, which was really nice. And this looks so much better than the Donkey Kong Country Returns thumbnail. So we're getting there. Even though I don't use this anymore, and there's elements about it I don't like, at least we're getting there, and that makes me happy. Still don't like this, but it is what it is. So, you know, we start to use, like, for the new Walking Dead stuff, this has a border because it was not, we did a few episodes that weren't canon with the rest of the series. We're starting to use all of this again, which is great. 2016 uses the same banner design, but for the purpose of this, it works fine. Limbo is using this. And also, just a quick thing to point out about Limbo, I really love what we did with the thumbnails, because this logo, it's actually solid, and we changed the blending mode to overlay because the game is black and white. It gives the impression that the logo is fading into the background, which works extremely well. Like on thumbnails like this is beautiful. You know, I absolutely adore this. So that was Limbo. On the NES Classics, you know, kind of the same concept. We moved it to the middle, but changing the center, and that's it. Otherwise, we're staying on stuff. First 20 always had a different look, and that actually changed too. We'll get to that in a bit. But again, we got this rounded rectangle, and we are going to town with the rounded rectangle. Morning Mario had been so old that it just kept the banner designed for a long time. But we were rocking that rounded rectangle. Now, at some point, I stopped using this PSD because, you know, PSD starts getting big. You got a bunch of stuff in here. And we moved to this other PSD. And on this other, I brought over a few things. But one of the things that you'll start to notice, keep your eye up here as we move up. You're going to notice that at some point, that's a bad example, at some point, things change to look a little bit, I'm wondering when it's going to be. God. Actually, it might be this series. Yep. So the StephenPlays that we've known up to this point, if we go back to Magic Duels here, this is the way it always looked. And then we finally, after all these years, had a actual logo. StephenVlog always had a logo. StephenPlays didn't. So I finally decided, after multiple years, to make a logo very reminiscent of the vlog logo, and then that started appearing up here. And once it did, then it took over Stephen and Friends, so we had that plus to indicate that. And then we started using it in here. And also you'll notice that Mal's name is actually a little different. If we compare it to, say, Abzu, you know, her logo and everything has changed too. So we no longer have any translucency in the background. This is nice and opaque. This is the way it looks. The challenge video, so now we just stay on this, and I believe we stay on this for a while. Super NES Classics is very reminiscent of that design as well. Mini golf, you're trying mini golf, and then we moved it to this, which looks a lot better. Morning Mario used to have the banner, and then it goes to the rounded rectangle as well. And we basically stay on this, and now you can start to see you're looking at series that you recognize from like earlier this year. First 20 also changed, obviously. And that leads us all the way to the new look, which is this. So the big question is, how did we get to this? Well, it's not as easy as boom, we made it, it's done. You're looking at Super Mario 64 because I had been working on this honestly since before Super Mario 64. I knew I wanted a new look, but I didn't know exactly how to do it. And you might be saying, isn't this just the banner design back? It is. It is. You know, history repeats itself. This is actually where I started. I liked the idea of it, but I didn't know where I wanted it to go. But slowly it evolved. And I was like, well, maybe I could do something with, you know, a banner, but I didn't like this negative space. It feels weird because this is a square. There's really no reason for it. I was like, well, what if I do that? It's kind of weird. It's like a butt hanging out or something. I had the little border here. And then I knew the next project I was going to be working on was BioShock 2, and I was like, I really want to launch the new look with BioShock 2, so I'm going to pour a lot of time and effort into figuring this out. So I had it up here still like a flag. You can see it's got the green border, but also a white border to kind of match the logo itself. And then I said, well, maybe I just need the logo in the corner, have, you know, just giant text. This one is a little more faithful to how we had been doing it, and I've got like text that matches this. And then I was like, well, maybe, no, I did that Smash Versus that had that design element. This isn't so bad. I like including the green because our channels are so well established with that color. That makes a lot of sense. But I also didn't like that there wasn't a logo in there. So then the logo showed up. And actually, this is totally based off of the way that I forget what it's like. Comedy Central UK. Like, Comedy Central's UK YouTube channel does stuff like this, and I love the look of it. I really do. But I didn't like it enough to keep it. Then I went into some crazier stuff, and I'll be honest, I actually still like the look of these things. I really do. It's just the text is wildly small, and also depending on the game, you're going to have really crazy stuff. So I was like, nah, this needs to be a little more simplified. So I kept moving forward. And then we start to get closer. You can now start to see the beginnings of what the current thumbnails actually look like. Then I decided to add a border, and then I said, you know what, maybe it should be rounded. And there we go. That is the thumbnail that we're currently using. Now, I continued to try different things. I decided to maybe round this out too. I didn't like that as much. And then when it was time to add Mal's name into it, I didn't know how to do it because I figured out my single-player stuff, but whenever Unfinished Swan was going to start, I was like, how do I get Mal's name in here? So I did her full logo, and I was like, this looks crazy. That's not going to work. And then I added, you know, and Mal with her current colors. And the reason I was abandoning her logo is because I was like, well, I like keeping it as simple as possible, like with the Helvetica. And then I did this, and I was like, I like that a lot because that is a nice solid color. But the problem is we've gotten rid of a lot of Mal's branding. So then it was a trial to try and bring it back. And this will actually be a little weird because, like, I think I need to turn off some layers. There we go. So here's the template option 2 where we got, like, featuring Mal makes her logos come back. And the colors are back. But again, I don't like how badly it clashes with what I've got there. So then I changed it a little bit, still not very happy. Then I went with blue, and I was like, oh, I like that, because Mal's favorite color is blue, my favorite color is green. It's solid, just like this. And I was like, yeah, I think I could live with this. And then it went to this. We're actually, I don't know if you know this, we've actually shortened the tail of the M. So we actually removed some of that. And it just says with Mal. And I was like, we are where we need to be. And how we made the jump from here to here, you can actually probably tell that the blue is a little different. And that's because this blue is the exact same saturation as this green. In order to get this blue, we took the green and we just changed the hue, and only the hue. We didn't pick out this blue. This is basically, we started with the green, changed only the hue, and we got to this blue. And that was actually the suggestion of Dan. On the last PSD I showed you, the very last thing is what I brought to Dan. I was like, you know, what is it that we need? And he suggested first and foremost that we change the width to a plus, because we already have that imagery here, you know, so we need to repeat it. And then he said he didn't really like the blue, and he couldn't figure out why. So I was like, you know what, I want to try something. So I grabbed the green, changed the hue to become blue, and then they were essentially, you know, the same the same saturation, which makes them very similar colors. And I loved it, he loved it, and I was like, I'm really happy with this. First 20 was pretty easy, because I just, you know, I brought back this. I've always used this. I think it's Futura, and you know, the white, so it was very easy to just keep that. And then most recently, Stephen and Friends, which I've made black. I figured black was appropriate. Black, to me, feels like a censor bar, or like adult, and the series tends to be very adult, so kind of like an After Dark type thing. That's why I made it black. Now this is super new, and this could change. There might be text at some point that more closely mimics this, but right now this is where we're at, and I like the idea of that. I've already thought of some different ideas too, like for example, if we do something on Twitch, and you know, we upload a VOD or something like that, then you might see that, you might see the same border, but this would be like Twitch purple or something like that. So there's a lot of different options. At some point, the Morning Mario thumbnails might be updated to have a border around them as well, and they would be yellow. So this is the direction we're going now. But the point I was making in all this and showing you the history is that design is really important to me. And design is definitely important on YouTube, but what you're supposed to do is get people's attention. And I like doing that, but the thing that's more important to me personally is making sure that it's well designed and that I'm happy with it. Like, sure, you can put yourself screaming in a thumbnail or whatever and say, you won't believe, and you'll probably do better, sure. But my personal philosophy is, I gotta be happy with my work. Like, I gotta, when I go to bed at night, I have to be able to, you know, feel some level of comfort and joy from the stuff that I've created. And this is where that comes from. The desire and the drive to continue to iterate and work on stuff that I feel is beautiful, elegant, and gets the message across cleanly, but also makes me happy. And that is the reason the thumbnails got updated. And I'm going to be honest, this was much longer than I ever anticipated it being, but I did go through the huge history of stuff. And with any luck, maybe you found this interesting? And hey, if you didn't, that's fine. And you're probably not watching if you got halfway through the video and you check the time and you're like, oh, I'm out. That's fine. This is the sort of thing that's like really weirdly important to me, and I get fixated on little details like this. And certainly I don't change the thumbnails all that often. I mean, the channel's been around for years and years and years, and there's only been a few major iterations in that time. But it's something I'm always, you know, thinking about. And every once in a while, things get stale. You know, I get tired of looking at them, and I'm sure maybe subconsciously you guys do too. And that's whenever I move forward and I'm like, let's come up with something else. So I'm happy with the direction we went with these new thumbnails. Maybe at some point in the future they'll change again. I guess we'll just have to see. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video, let me know, because I'm a little self-conscious, I think, about it. This is not a typical Stephen Vlog video, and certainly I reserve the right to use this platform for whatever the heck I want, But it's nice to know that, maybe other people are interested in the channel history for Stephen Plays, certainly like thumbnail design and our thoughts behind things, and also some of the process from how we get from one spot to another. Design is not easy. It takes a long time. There's a lot of things you got to try. There's input you get from other people, and eventually you get to something that you don't hate. Well, at least for a few years. Then you come back and you hate it a lot. But that's how you know you're growing. Anyway, that's it for today. Thank you so much for watching, and as always, let's meet back tomorrow, shall we?